Deep in the mist-covered valleys of Eastern Europe, hidden from modern maps, lay the forgotten village of Black Hollow. The few outsiders who dared to travel near it spoke of strange symbols carved into the trees, of distant chanting carried by the wind, and of an unsettling feeling of being watched from the shadows. The villagers were pale, their eyes hollow not from hunger, but from something far worse. They worshipped an ancient deity known only as the One Who Hungers. Every year, at the height of the blood moon, they performed the harvest of flesh, a ritual where a chosen outsider, or sometimes an unlucky villager, was sacrificed in a gruesome feast. The victims' bones were ground into powder, their blood mixed into the soil, and their screams, well, the villagers claimed those were heard by their god. But the most terrifying part, the sacrifices worked. Crops grew unnaturally large, livestock never sickened, and those who partook in the feast gained an eerie, ageless vitality. Until one day, a traveler arrived who refused to be silenced. The wind howled through the skeletal trees as Lena, a folklorist from Budapest, stepped into the abandoned cottage on the edge of Black Hollow. The door creaked open like a dying breath, revealing a scene frozen in time, a meal half-eaten on the table, a child's doll lying face down in the dust, and, most chilling of all, a leather-bound journal nailed to the wall with a rusted iron spike. Lena pried it loose, her fingers trembling. The first page bore a single sentence, scrawled in what looked like dried blood. "If you are reading this, you are already chosen." The journal belonged to Father Andras Kovacs, a priest sent to Black Hollow in 1893 to bring God's light to the village. At first he wrote of mundane things, the unseasonal frost, the way villagers avoided his gaze. But then, the entries grew darker. October 12th, the children here draw the same symbol in the dirt, a mouth with too many teeth. When I ask of its meaning, they only smile. November 1st, tonight, I followed the elders into the woods. They led a blindfolded man to the standing stones. What they did there, God forgive me, I cannot unsee it. December 24th, they call it the Feast of the Hollow One. The meat is always fresh, though I have seen no cattle. I refuse to eat. The villagers stare at me hungrily. The final entry was a frantic scribble. They know I've seen the truth. The God is not in the soil. It is below it. It has been whispering to them through their dreams. It wants more, always more. I hear it scratching at the church floorboards. It smells my fear. Mary, Mother of God. The rest of the page was torn out. Lena's lantern flickered as she descended into the cottage's root cellar. The air smelled of wet earth and something sweetly rotten. The walls were covered in the same symbol from the journal, the jagged maw. Then she saw them. Handprints, dozens of them, pressed into the stone as if something had clawed its way up from below. But these were no ordinary marks, they were inverted, fingers pointing downward. A gust of wind extinguished her lantern. In the darkness, something licked the back of her neck. The wet click of something retreating into the cellar's depths was the only sound Lena heard before her lantern flared back to life on its own. The flame burned an unnatural blue-green, casting long, twitching shadows that moved against the draft. The inverted handprints on the walls now glistened, as if freshly made. And at the far end of the cellar, where solid earth should have been, there was a hole. Not a dug tunnel, not a collapse, a mouth. The edges pulsed faintly, strands of viscous saliva, or was it sap, stretching between jagged stones like teeth. The air pouring from it was warm and reeked of buried meat. Lena's body locked in place. Every instinct screamed to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. Then came the voice, not from the hole, from inside her head. "You smell of sunlight," it cooed, the words slithering between her thoughts. "We have not tasted sunlight in how long? Has it been, little priest?" A muffled groan echoed from the hole. Someone was alive down there. The journal's missing page fluttered from the darkness, landing at Lena's feet. The writing was barely legible, the ink blurred by tears or perhaps blood. Asterisk, the Hollow One is no god. It is a prisoner. The villagers do not feed it to gain blessings, they feed it to keep it sleeping. But it is waking. It remembers the taste of free air, it remembers the sound of screaming, it remembers me. I tried to seal it. Holy water, iron nails, salt, nothing worked, because it is older than these things, older than that village, older than sin. It is hungry, and tonight they will give it. A scream tore through the cellar, so loud Lena dropped the lantern. The glass shattered in the dying light. She saw Father Kovacs, or what was left of him. His body was fused to the far wall. Ribs split open like a grotesque butterfly. His organs replaced by thick black roots that pulsed in rhythm with the hole's breathing. His mouth stretched impossibly wide, not in pain, but in a grin. "Run," he gurgled, but the voice wasn't his. The roots jerked. The hole inhaled. Lena fled upstairs, barricading the cellar door with a rusted axe. Outside, the village bells began to toll, not the steady call to mass, but a frenzied, uneven clanging through the window. She saw them, the villagers. They moved in perfect unison, their faces slack, their eyes black with dilated pupils. Between them, dragged by frayed ropes, was a stranger hiker, maybe his mouth sewn shut with coarse twine. Behind them, the standing stones oozed a thick blood-red lichen. The tallest villager raised a bone knife to the sky. "We offer this flesh to the one below." The hiker's stitches burst as he began to scream. The church of broken vows. Lena ran through the skeletal trees, the hiker's screams still ringing in her skull. The only sanctuary left was the village church, its once white walls now stained black with mildew, its steeple crooked like a broken finger, pointing accusingly at the sky. The door was barred from the inside. Something didn't want her to enter. She kicked it open and the stench hit her like a physical blow. Death. Old death. The pews were shattered, the altar overturned, and at the center of the nave, lying in a pool of stagnant water, was her Dot. She was beautiful once. That much was clear from the tattered wedding dress still clinging to her skeletal frame, the rotted lace gloves, the rusted silver tiara half buried in her skull. But now she was wrong. Her ribcage had split open like a grotesque flower, the bones warped into thorn-like protrusions, her spine stretched too long, curling like a serpent's tail. And her face, oh God, her face. The skin had melted away, revealing a grinning skull, but the eyes were still there, wet, watching, and worst of all, they blinked. A whisper slithered from the bride's lipless mouth. "They promised me eternity." Lena stumbled back, but the bride's bony fingers snapped around her wrist, cold as winter soil. "I was the first," the corpse hissed. "The first bride, the first feast, the first to be woven into him," with a sound like tearing parchment. The bride's ribcage yawned wider, and inside, nestled among the roots and rot, was a tiny, shriveled hand, a child's hand. "They fed me to him," the bride moaned. "Then they fed me our daughter, and when that wasn't enough, they fed me the village." The walls of the church breathed. The puddle at the bride's feet began to boil. And from the darkness beneath the pews, something scratched out. Lena tore free, but the bride's voice followed her. "You think you can run? You're already part of the feast. The Hollow One tasted you in the cellar. He remembers. He wants." A gust of wind threw open the church doors, and outside, the villagers stood in a silence. Cynically, at their feet lay the hiker's corpse. Empty, hollowed out like a gourd. The tallest villager stepped forward, extending a single trembling hand. Toward Lena. In his palm lay a wedding ring made of braided human hair. "The harvest needs a new bride," he whispered. Lena backed away from the ring of hair, her pulse hammering in her throat. The villagers didn't move. They didn't need to. The church doors slammed shut behind her. Trapped, she turned on that. Hidden beneath the bride's skeletal fingers was a book, not a journal. Not scripture, a ledger. Its pages were stained brown with age and blood, its spine bound in what looked like human skin. The title, etched in flaking gold, read, "The First Feast." Lena opened it, and the village's true history unfolded before her. Black Hollow was never supposed to exist. The ledger told of a group of 12th century heretics, excommunicated and hunted, who fled into these woods. Starving, desperate, they did the unthinkable. They ate the dead, not just for survival, for power. Their leader, a defrocked monk named Vossel the Cursed, claimed to hear a voice in the earth, a presence older than the trees, older than mankind. It whispered secrets. It promised strength. And so, on the blood moon, Vossel carved the first symbol into his chest and let the earth drink. The next morning, the crops grew overnight. The sick rose from their beds, healed. The village thrived, but the voice grew louder, hungrier, and soon, survival wasn't enough. It wanted worship. The ledger's next pages were illustrated. Lena's stomach twisted as she took in the grotesque sketches. A child buried up to her neck in the village squared. Vossel pouring molten silver down her throat. That the earth splitting open beneath her as something accepted the offering. The caption beneath read, "Thus began our covenant. The Hollow One took her flesh, and in return he gave us life without end." But the final illustration made Lena's blood freeze. It showed Vossel himself kneeling before a hole, the same one in the cellar. From it emerged a hand. Not a root. Not a claw, a human hand, but stretched too long. Its fingers fused together by something black and pulsating. It was touching Vossel's forehead. Branding him A wet crack echoed through the church. Lena looked up. The bride was standing. Her skeletal feet didn't touch the ground. She floated, her tattered dress swaying in an unfelt wind, her hollow eyes locked on Lena. "You see now," the bride whispered. "He was not always a god. He was like us. Flesh, weak, hungry." The ledger's pages turned on their own, flipping to the very end to a passage Lena hadn't seen before, a single sentence, written in Vossel's own hand. "We did not create him. We simply woke him up." The ground trembled. The villagers outside began to chant, and beneath the church, something stirred. The villagers' voices slithered through the cracks in the church walls, a guttural hymn in a language that should not exist. The words twisted in Lena's ears, burrowing into her skull like worms. "From the hollow we came, to the hollow we return. Flesh to flesh, blood to blood, ash to the one below." The ground quaked. Dust rained from the rafters. Somewhere beneath the rotting floorboards, something stretched, a sound like 1,000 bones snapping back into place. The bride's skeletal fingers tightened around Lena's wrist. "Too late," she hissed. "He is awake." The truth in the lantern flared to life on its own, the fire-burning black dot in its unnatural glow. The shadows on the church walls moved, not just flickered, rearranged themselves, forming a grotesque mural of the village's history. The first sacrifice, a child, screaming as the earth swallowed her whole. The first harvest, villagers feasting on meat that still twitched on their plates. Closing parenthesis. The first time, the hollow one, spoke back, a priest's eyes melting as the voice filled his skull. And then him, not a god, not a demon, a man, or what was left of one. The shadows showed a figure buried alive, his flesh fused with the roots, his mouth sewn shut with thorns. His hands clawed at the soil, but the villagers kept shoveling dirt onto him, chanting as they did. "We give you life," they whispered, "and you will give us eternity." The last shadow showed the moment he stopped fighting, the moment he changed. His ribs split open like wings, his fingers grew into roots, and his voice became the wind, the trees, the hunger in their bellies. The church doors exploded inward. The villagers stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror, not devotion, fear, because the thing crawling from the cellar wasn't the god they worshipped. It was angry, it was hungry, and it remembered betrayal. The creature was a nightmare of flesh and foliage, a tangle of skeletal limbs wrapped in pulsating roots. Where its face should have been, there was only a void, a gaping, toothless maw that dripped black sap. But worst of all, it was weeping. Tears of thick, amber liquid rolled down its wooden skin, hissing as they hit the floor. "Liar," it whispered, in Lena's mind, but aloud, in a voice like a dying forest. You promised I would sleep." The villagers fell to their knees, begging. The hollow one laughed. And then the feasting began. Lena watched in horror as the creature unfolded. Roots speared through the villagers' chests, lifting them into the air like grotesque puppets. Their bodies swelled, their skin splitting as something inside them grew mushrooms. Vines, more of him. The tallest villager reached for Lena, his lips parting in a final plea, then his jaw unhinged, his throat blooming outward like a flower, revealing a tiny, withered hand deep inside him, the same hand Lena had seen inside the bride, the first sacrifice. The hollow one screamed, a sound so loud it shattered the church windows. "Give her back." The ground split open. The villagers fell, and the hollow one followed them down, silenced, and a single root slithered toward Lena, its tip brushing her cheek. The voice in her head returned, softer now. "You smell of sunlight." A pause. "Go." The root retracted, the hole in the earth sealed itself, and Lena was left alone in the ruins of Black Hollow, the wind whispering one final truth. Gods are not born, they are made, and they never forget. Lena stumbled through the forest, her breath ragged, her skin burning where the hollow one's root had touched her. The wound wasn't deep, just a scratch, really, but it itched. Not like a healing cut, like something beneath. Her skin was growing. She reached the edge of Black Hollow as dawn bled across the sky, turning the mist the color of old bruises. The village was silent now. No chanting, no screams, just waiting. She didn't look back. Lena made it to the nearest town by nightfall, her legs shaking, her throat raw. She booked a room at a dingy inn, locking the door behind her for the first time in days. She was safe, or so she thought. She peeled off her clothes, her fingers trembling as she examined the wound on her cheek. That it wasn't a scratch, that it was a symbol, that's the same jagged maw the villagers had carved into their flesh, the same mouth that had opened in the cellar, and it was spreading. Thin black veins pulsed outward from the mark, branching like roots beneath her skin. When she pressed a finger to it, she heard him, Hungry, the voice whispered. And for the first time Lena was too. That night, she dreamed of the earth, not the forest, not the village. The deep, endless dark below it. She was buried alive, her lungs full of soil, her fingers clawing at roots that slithered around her like serpents, and then a hand, small, delicate, a child's hand, reaching for her from the blackness. "Help me," a voice sobbed. "They put me here. They made me part of him." Lena tried to scream and woke up chewing. Her mouth was full of dirt. Her nails were caked with blood. And on the nightstand beside her, the mark on her cheek had bled onto the wood, forming a single word, *feed. Days passed, the mark grew, the hunger worsened. Lena tried to eat normal food, bread, meat, fruit, but it all turned to ash in her mouth. The only thing that satisfied her, raw meat, still warm. She told herself it was from the butcher. It wasn't. The veins beneath her skin darkened. Her reflection in the mirror flickered, her eyes hollowing for just a second before returning to normal. And the voice, louder, "You are mine now," the hollow one crooned. "My roots are in your bones. My hunger is in your blood. You will feed me, Lena, or you will become me." Lena stood at the edge of the forest again, her breath fogging in the cold air. The wound on her cheek ached. The hunger gnawed. And the child's voice from her dreams, begging. She took a step forward, then another, back to black, hollow, back to him, because some gods don't die, some hungers don't end, and some sacrifices are never enough. The trees whispered as Lena stepped back into the village, not with wind, with recognition. Black Hollow was different now. The houses sagged like rotten teeth. The standing stones wept a thick, black sap, and the air tasted like copper and spoiled meat. The mark on her cheek pulsed in time with her heartbeat, the roots beneath, her skin squirming as if eager to return. She wasn't alone. He was waiting. The cellar door yawned open before her, the darkness inside breathing. Lena descended. The roots on the walls trembled as she passed, caressing her arms like skeletal fingers. At the bottom, the hole in the earth had widened, no longer a mouth, but a throat, and at its edge, kneeling, in the dirt, was the bride. Her skeletal hands clutched something, a child's doll, the one from the abandoned cottage. "You came back," the bride rasped. "He knew you would." Lena's voice was not her own. "What does he want?" The bride's lipless mouth twisted into a smile. "What all gods want," she said. "A story." She held out the doll. It was wet. The hollow one rose from the hole, not as a monster, but as a memory. A man, a father, the first to be buried alive in this cursed soil. His voice, when it came, was human. "They called me Vosel," he said. "Before I was hollow, before I was hungry." The roots around them shivered, forming visions. A village starving, a priest whispering to the earth, a child's hand reaching from the dirt. The truth unfolded like a rotten flower. The first sacrifice was not given, it was taken. Vosel's daughter, buried alive to bind him to the earth, to make him more, to make him holy. And when he clawed his way free, the village fed him to the ground. Again, and again, and again, until he forgot his own name, until he became the hunger itself. The hollow one extended a hand, not of root and rot, but of flesh. "End it," he begged. "Let me sleep," the bride hissed. "No, without him, we are nothing." Lena looked at the doll in her hands, at the tiny withered fingers stitched into its chest, at the child still screaming beneath the earth, and she understood. The god was not the monster the worshippers were. Lena plunged her hands into the hole. The roots screamed, the village shook, and the earth opened, not to swallow her, to free them. The hollow one's human form crumbled like rotten wood, his voice fading to a whisper. "Thank you." The bride wailed as her bones collapsed into dust. The roots withered, the standing stones bled, and from the darkness below, a single, small hand grasped Lena's wrist. Alive, warm, human. Lena emerged at dawn, the child clinging to her back. Behind them, Black Hollow rotted, the houses collapsed, the trees turned to ash, the earth sealed itself, silent at last. But the mark on Lena's cheek remained, darker now, hungrier, because gods do not die, that they change. And the thing beneath her skin, it was awake. The child Alina slept fitfully against Lena's chest as they trudged through the dying forest. Black Hollow was gone, reduced to a scar in the earth, but the mark on Lena's face burned. It had spread. Thick black veins now curled down her neck, across her collarbone, pulsing like roots after rain, and the hunger worse. She could smell the child's breath, sweet, milky, alivened for one terrible moment. Lena's teeth ached with the need to bite. She clenched her jaw until blood welled in her gums. "Not her," she whispered. "Never her." The voice in her skull laughed. They took shelter in an abandoned hunter's cabin. Lena barred the door, nailed shut the windows. But the moment she closed her eyes, the dreams came. She stood in a vast, dark cavern, the walls lined with faces, not carved, fused, men, women, children, their mouths stretched in silent screams, their skin melting into gnarled roots. That at the center knelt Vossel, his hollow eyes lifting to hers. "You feel it now, don't you?" he murmured. "The weight of the earth, the ache in your bones, the way the hunger twists you." Lena looked down. Her hands were no longer flesh. They were bark, they were bone, they were his. Lena woke, screaming, her fingers clawing at her own throat. Alina stared at her from the corner, eyes wide. "You're changing," the girl said, not afraid, knowing Lena stumbled outside, collapsing in the snow. She scooped handfuls of it into her mouth, but it did nothing to quench the fire in her veins. Then a rabbit, limping at the tree line. Lena was on it before she could think. Her teeth tore through fur and flesh. Hot blood spilled down her chin. The meat was sweet, rich, right tanned. Then it spoke. "More." The voice sighed. "Content. Always more." Lena retched, but her body thrummed with strength. The roots beneath her skin greened. Alina pressed a hand to Lena's cheek the next morning. "You're cold," she said. Lena was. Her heartbeat had slowed. Her breath no longer fogged in the air, and when she cut her palm with a knife, black sap oozed out. Alina didn't flinch. She pressed her own small hand to the wound and the mark on. Lena's face shuddered. The voice in her head screamed. No, Lena wrenched away, but it was too late. A single thin root had jumped from her skin to Alina's. The girl smiled. "It doesn't hurt," she lied. The next time Lena dreamed, she stood before a throne of tangled bones. Vossel knelt at her feet. "You were supposed to replace me," he said, "but she... She is pure, unbroken, the hunger loves her." Lena lunged for him and woke to silence. Alina was gone. The cabin door stood open. Outside, footprints led into the forest, not running away, walking toward the ruins of Black Hollow, toward the hole, toward him. Lena found Alina at the edge of the pit, her small hands pressed to the earth. The roots welcomed her. They curled around her wrists like bracelets, blooming tiny white flowers where they touched. "It's okay," Alina said, without turning. "He doesn't want to hurt us anymore. He's just lonely." The ground trembled. The roots parted. And from the darkness below, something rose. Not a monster, not a god. A child, pale, Torif, perfect, hungry. Elina reached for her. "We can make him whole again," she whispered. "All you have to do is feed." Lena fell to her knees before the pit, her body trembling not with fear, but with recognition that the thing rising from the darkness was not the twisted horror she had seen before. It was beautiful, a child of roots and moonlight, its skin woven from pale bark, its eyes twin pools of liquid shadow. It reached for Alina with fingers that sprouted tiny leaves, and the girl went willingly, her small hand clasping its own. "He was never the monster," Alina whispered. "He was just lost." The mark on Lena's face burned, the roots beneath her skin writhing in ecstasy. She understood now. The Hollow One was not a god of hunger, it was a god of loneliness, and it had been waiting for them. The visions came unbidden: a village, starving, a father burying his child to save his people, the earth answering not with malice, but with grief. The sacrifices had never been about power, they had been about love, a desperate, broken love, twisted by centuries of fear. The villagers had fed it flesh to keep it sleeping, but it had never wanted flesh. It had wanted family, and now, it looked at Lena with something like hope. "Stay," it whispered, not in her mind, but in the air itself, the wind shaping the word. "Be my vessel, be my voice, and I will never hunger again." Alina's fingers tightened around its hand. "We can fix him," she said. Lena's heart shattered. Had run from Black Hollow, she had fought the hunger, she had cursed the god beneath the earth, but now she understood. Lena stepped forward, her bare feet sinking into the soft soil at the pit's edge. The roots welcomed her, curling around her ankles like serpents, their touch cool and gentle. She cupped Alina's face in her hands. "You were right," she murmured. "He just needed someone to listen." Then she turned to the Hollow One and spread her arms. "Take me," she said. "Let her go, and I will give you what you've always wanted." The god tilted its head. "What is that?" Lena smiled. "A story that doesn't end in hunger." The earth opened, not to swallow her. To embrace her. Roots coiled around Lena's body, lifting her into the air, their thorns piercing her flesh not to hurt, but to weave. Bark spread across her skin, vines threaded through her hair, her bones lightened, her body becoming something new, something whole. Alina watched, tears streaming down her face, but she did not scream. She understood this was not an ending, it was a beginning. Asterisk when it was done. Lena stood at the edge of the pit, her body no longer human, her skin was silver bark, her veins pulsed with black sap. Her voice, when she spoke, was the whisper of leaves in the wind. Go, she told Lena. Tell them the god of Black Hollow is dead. The girl hesitated. What will you do? Lena turned to the ruins of the village, her hollow eyes seeing everything, the bones beneath the soil, the echoes of the lost, the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth itself. I will sleep, she said, and dream of better things. Then she stepped into the pit and, the earth sealed shut behind her. Years later, travelers whisper of a forest where the trees grow too tall, their roots coiled around something ancient. They say if you listen closely, you can hear a woman's voice in the wind. They say if you leave an offering, a handful of berries, a lock of hair, a whispered secret, the soil will bless you. And they say, on the blood moon, a figure walks among the trees, her skin of bark, her crown of thorns, her hands cradling the bones of the forgotten. She does not hunger, she does not weep. She remembers. Asterisk, and in the dark below, the earth dreams.